Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be doing a sad clownfish. We're going to be drawing a sad clownfish. So as always, we're going to start with our sketching layer. And our sketching layer, we're going to move around a little bit, get the pen flowing. We're just using a soft airbrush pen here, getting the basic shape of the fish, doodling around the fins, the eyes, and getting all the basic stuff we need in place to do the inking layer. So again, this is the sketch layer on Procreate, and it is the first layer in the number of layers that I'm using. So just keeping the pen loose, moving around, and creating that shape. So now we go to layer number 2, and we switch from the soft brush to the 6B pencil under the sketching category. And the 6B I like a lot because you can really there's some nice gradation to it in terms of like the line you can do from thin to thick. You can do that with the other stuff, but it just looks really nice and sketchy, but clean though at the same time. So I really like that. It looks like an ink, even though it's technically a pencil, and I just really like the look of it. So we're just going to start going over the eye here, adding the details around there over the sketch lines. So we're going to move around, add some wrinkles to the eyelid. Of course, do the eyebrow because he's sad, so we need to have the eyebrow looking skyward in the water, and then have his really big, exaggerated, sad face here because, again, he is a sad clownfish. Then we're going to move our way around the body using different pressure points, so hard and soft to create the hard, which creates the thicker, and the soft, which creates the thinner line. And then we're just going to add the fins, move around a little bit more, take a look at the shape, see if it's what we like. And then we're going to go back to the first layer, and we're going to erase all the sketch lines. So we get rid of that mess, get it out of the way, and it looks pretty nice and clean now with just our line artwork there by itself. So now I'm going to move back in here, and I'm going to use the eraser to get rid of some lines like the bottom fin there. We have a line going through another line which shouldn't be there, and then I'm just going to go around the fish and just look for little lines to get rid of, add some things here and there. This is the one thing I like about this pencil too, is the fact that I can do shading very lightly. Just by taking the pressure off, it looks really good. I don't need to switch pens to have a separate one for the shading because you can really see how the difference there is between the thick line of the fish and the shading of the fish. And this is a technique, it's not cross-hatching, it's just one single parallel lines working their way across in rhythm, which looks really good for inking to create a little bit of shade, but most of the shade is going to come from the painting layer, which we're going to do after. But I'm just adding some quick sketchy lines below at the bottom of the fish now, on the bottom of his belly, because obviously our light source is coming from above, from the top of the ocean, so we're just creating that. And I'm going to speed it up a little bit here, and we're going to go to our painting layer. And this is where I'm going to add the clown face starting. So we're just doing a basic red out of the painting icon in the list of brushes over there. And the cool thing about this painting brush is that the more you use it, the more the color deepens in. So you really start with a light coat, and then the more you use it on the same spot, the deeper it gets in the color. So it's almost translucent in some of the spots, which I kind of like. So it's not as bold. So here we're going to do obviously the red around the eyes because he is a clown. We got it around the mouth. We got the little circle on the cheek. And then again, I'm going to add another layer of the paint. Make it a little bit darker. And then we've got the little design above and below his eye to create the clown look. And then here we're going to do the blue on the eye. I wasn't sure what color I wanted to give him, but I think blue is a good one. Red and blue go nice together. So I'm just going to do that. And then go the teardrops below the eye. We're going to add there because he is a sad clown, so it makes sense. And then we're going to do a little bit of the reflection of the light hitting the teardrops on his face. So now we're going to move back to layer number 4. We're going to put that past layer number 3. So this is going to be a layer beyond that where we don't have to worry about messing up the other colors we did because it's a completely different layer. So this is where we're going to do the body of the fish. And again, we're going to switch over to the painting brush, and we just make it a little bit bigger, and we start painting around. Now the cool thing, the difference between this paintbrush and the airbrush paint is the airbrush paint is a little smoother, where you don't see those lines. See the choppy lines that I'm painting right now? I kind of like that look in terms of shading and how it looks with character stuff, but for the backgrounds I kind of like the smoother look, so it kind of makes both stand out from each other, so to speak. Now I've darkened the orange because I'm going to go back in here now and I'm going to use the shading, because remember our light source is coming from above. And let's just start to gently using the brush at different sizes to create the effect of the orange being darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. And again, it's a messier brush, but I like the way it looks. It gives a nice arty feel to it compared to the nice clean airbrush look, which we'll use for the background of the ocean in a little bit. So I'm dropping down again, going a little darker, and then I'm creating that difference between the regular orange, the slightly darker orange, and the much darker orange for the shade. Now I'm going to switch over to our soft brush here because I'm going to use it as a nice reflection of light on the top of the fish. It's a very gentle look, whereas if I use the painting brush it would be too harsh. This has a nice soft look of the light hitting the top of the fish, which I like doing with the contrast of the other brush. So now I'm just making it a little bit bigger and I'm creating more light hitting on the side and top of the fish, so we have that effect. And now I'm going to go back to layer number 3 and I'm going to do the same thing for the eyelid. See how the light is hitting the front part of his eye? Do that there. Creates the same effect as the top of the fish. And then I'm going to just start erasing around the mouth where I was coloring outside the lines because I knew I was going to erase it at a later time. Clean that up a bit. And now I'm going to go back and clean up around the fish as well. So I'm going to do a really light pressure of erasing because, again, this is clown makeup on his face. So we don't want to have a clean line between the orange and the white. So we want to use a little bit like, he smudged on the makeup because he is a sad clownfish. So how does the makeup stay underwater? Well, it must be waterproof, I guess. So anyway, he's just moving around doing that. And then I'm just going to start erasing all the orange around the fish. So we get rid of that, get rid of all that, erase it, erase it, erase it. And now we're going to jump over and use our painting brush again. And we're going to start coloring in his eye. And the color of the iris is going to match the fish. So now we're going to drop down and do a little bit darker on the bottom part of the iris, which makes it look really good. And then we're going to add in the soft brush to show the light hitting the colored part of the eye, which is a nice reflection and gives it a nice deeper look to the artwork. So that's what we add in there. Now we're going to go back over and we're going to drop down the color a little bit. We're going to go back to our painting brush and we're going to do a slight gray under the eyelid and a little bit below, which gives the eye some depth. Sometimes the eye can look flat if there's no shading with the lid or below the bottom part of the white part of the eye, the sclera I think it's called. And then we're just going to add some shade in around the rest of the face where there would be natural shading below on the chin, below the lips, and on the corner of the eye. Then we're going to create another layer, layer number 5. And we're going to jump back over to 2 for a second, because a lot of times when I'm jumping around I'll notice something. So we're going to go back over here, and I'm going to add an important part of the sad clown, which I completely forgot, is his sad hat. So we're going to add the hat on here, give them little lines and little lines on the hat that are all over that. And of course, since it's a clown, we need to add a flower. So we've got a little flower sticking out there. There we go. And we're going to decrease the eraser and get rid of some of the lines on the head and the hat. Get rid of the top part of the fish's head because it's covered by the hat, so we need to get rid of that. And then I'm going to start adding a couple wrinkles in the hat. Obviously, it's an older hat, so it's not brand new. Maybe that's what he's sad about. I don't think so, but he's probably got deeper problems than that. But we're not going to go into his problems right now. So then we just add a couple lines into the hat right there for the shading. And then we are going to move to layer number 5. And this is where we're going to do the color of the hat. So we switch over to our painting brush again. and we just start coloring in the hat. Which is, again, the reason I like this painting brush is because it starts out really, really light, the color, so you can really work your way in terms of how much you want this to pop. And I think it has that nice worn look too, the lightness of the color. And then you can add in the shade by dropping down a little bit lower in your color wheel, creating that darker color below, because again, we know the light's coming from above. And now we're going to use a lighter brown to color the band going across the hat. I had originally drawn a couple lines to indicate there would be a buckle on the hat, but I'm going to color over that and get rid of those lines because I think I'm just going to do a basic stripe across the hat. So we'll get rid of those lines in a second, but in the meantime we'll do some nice darker shading like we did with the other brown. Now we're going to go back and erase those two lines I was just talking to you about. We'll get rid of those. Gives a nice cleaner look right there to the hat, the brown and the light brown. Now we're going to go to our airbrush because we've got to put some nice light hitting the top of the hat here. Again, we use the airbrush because it's nice and soft. And when light typically hits something, unless it's incredibly stylized, you just want that softer look. I think it looks nicer in contrast with the other paintbrush. So now we're going to create layer number 6, and we are going to start to color in a good old flower. So we've got a sunflower going on here, so we're going to use brown in the middle. Again, we drop down for the shading. There we go. And then we're going to add another layer to do the nice yellow of the sunflower. So we want to get the right mix, maybe a little bit brighter. It's the only bright part of this sad clownfish's day. It's this bright flower. Now we're going to drop down a little bit and use the shade. So again, the light is coming from above, so we're going to shade the below. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move around a little bit, and we are going to go to layer number 6. And we're going to make sure our color wheel is where we want it. So we're going to go to the soft brush, and now we're going to switch over to the pencil, which is going to be dark, and we're going to start to do the stripes on the clownfish. So we just start moving around, adding those where we want to add them. Across the bottom of the belly, across the top, on the tail, and we're going to add a few as well across the bottom fins too. So it adds a nice level of detail. Looks pretty cool with the white across the orange, which was pretty neat. Now we're going to erase some other spots that we see. We're going to give the fish a good look over, see if there's anything else we want to add. If not, then we go to layer number 8, and this is our ocean. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, where the soft brush comes into play. So we just start going back and forth. As you can see, it's you don't have any of those lines that you have with the painting brush that I use for the character stuff. This is much more smooth. And since it's the background, we want it to be a little smoother anyway because we want the character to stand out. So I've just dropped down here and I've added some shade because obviously the deeper the ocean goes, the darker it is. So that's how nature is. So we want to reflect that, just a quick back and forth. You don't have to be very uniformed here, just as long as you're bouncing around with the dark color, because light obviously goes in different areas and hits different spots. So now we're going to go across the top, and we're just going to go across a few times, very soft. Then we're going to move our way down where the reflection starts to come in with the water. It's a very wide brush. We're using the soft air brush. If we use too thin of a line, it'll be too striking in terms of how sharp the edges are. So we just want to get that feeling that we know light's coming from above, which matches the light that we have on top of the character's hat and the character's body. So now we're going to use the same airbrush, and we're going to go small bubbles, and we're going to add the bubbles going around the fish, and then the fish is obviously swimming, so we need to show those motions of what's happening. And there goes the bubbles towards the top. And we're going to use the bubbles moving away from him because he's moving and obviously breathing at the same time. You get the bubbles moving up around his mouth, and you have the bubbles moving backwards across his fins. Now we're going to take the eraser, and we're going to go to the ocean layer, and we're just getting rid of all the blue that went into the fish as we colored in the ocean. The reason this happens is because when you use the painting brush, like I said before, it can be very translucent. So when you use an airbrush behind it, even if it's on a different layer, it'll change the color of the layers before it because it's able to bleed through. So we're just going to go back and erase that. As you can see as I'm erasing it, there is a difference in the color. Like if you look at how much lighter the orange is, once you start erasing across, it'll show the difference. If I used an airbrush for the color of the fish, then it would be completely blocked out, and you wouldn't have that problem. But again, I like I like how it looks. The fact that it looks just more messy and shady, and just very, very different in terms of how the character looks in the background. It looks great both ways, but I've kind of preferred this lately. I really like using this painting brush. So now I'm just racing around, getting rid of all that. This is the tedious stuff where you just look around the fish, like on the top fin, get rid of the background there. And then you just look around to see, okay, are there any other spots that I want to erase? How does it look? That's kind of what you're looking for with stuff like this. So let's speed it up a little bit. And I think we pretty much have it the way we want it. So we're going to look at it, and then we're going to add some white on the eyebrows. We're going to sign it. And then that's our sad clownfish. We've got it signed, we've got the colors, we've got his movement, we've got his hat, his flower, his sad expression, and hopefully his day continues to, at some point, get better. He's not food for another predator, so that's good. He should be happy about that. But there he is, our sad clownfish. Thanks for joining, guys. Hit the subscribe button, hit like, and see you in the next video.